Hi, good morning, and welcome to the March podcast. I've got a remote mic hooked up this time, so hopefully we'll have a better volume control. That was some of the complaints we had from the last one, that the volume was a little low, so hopefully this will take care of that. Lots of things to talk about. Try to get it done in 15 minutes or less. That's the whole idea of this thing. Remember, we are doing renewals now via Skype or FaceTime. That's the only two we're trying. We've experimented with some of the other ones, and some of the other ones have a pretty hefty cost that's involved with them. So therefore, we don't want to involve tons of money to try to do this. We'll do this as inexpensively as we can. So Skype or FaceTime are the two things that we're using for the renewals, where you set your camera up, or actually it's your phone slant camera, up in your classroom, hit Skype. I literally watch your program through your phone. Couple points in reference to that: make sure the phone is on some type of surface that the phone won't slide off of. You might want to wet a paper towel and put that on the table, and then that will add some little grip for the phone so it won't slide off. One of the last monitors I just did, literally the phone fell like 5 times on the floor while we're trying to do the monitor, so that makes it difficult to try to do a monitor when the phone's flopping around the ground over there. Okay, so anchor that phone down so we can do a good monitor for you. A couple things to remember with the monitor is that all your equipment should be ready for your class, or if we're doing a renewal where I'm just watching you do your skills, such as CPR on the adult, CPR on the infant. We've had some instances now where there's no lungs in the mannequin, where they don't have their bag valve mask present. When I ask them, they didn't even have the bag valve mask there. So the question comes up as to how are you teaching a class for basic life support when that is core material that you've got to be teaching bag valve mask, and you don't have the bag valve mask even present to do the class. So yeah, that's a no-no. You don't have BVMs, you don't do a bag, you can't demonstrate bag valve mask, you can't do a basic life support class. Okay, so again, coming up here, I need to monitor every class at least once a year. So sometime during your multiple classes, if you only teach a couple classes a year, then you really need to schedule this ahead of time. Make sure that you got us plugged in for one of the classes you will be teaching. Okay, come the end of the year, I don't want to hear, oh, well, I only did 2. Well, no, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear that you scheduled this correctly, even if you got to do a mock class, that I can monitor the mock class. Okay, so no reason why this can't get done. It's working real well. 2 things so far. One class I just recently did, the instructor did a fantastic job, literally by the points. She had her little outline, her notes, everything went extremely well. I could have literally about halfway through clicked off because there was no doubt she knew what she was doing. Then it was the other class where the instructor on his video's on freeze, getting ready to start, and the video says heart saver. And yet his opening remarks, everything is kind of sounding like basic life support. So during the break, I clicked off mute and I said to him, can you tell me which type of class are you teaching today? And he said, oh, I'm doing basic life support. I said, well, that makes sense from what you're saying. That's kind of what I was gleaning from what you were saying, but you do know that your video is the heart saver video. And he said to me, no, and he went running back to the TV and the DVD player, picks up the basic life support DVD and says, see, it's a basic life support DVD. And I said, well, that's good, but the one in the machine, the one that you're playing, is heart saver. So kind of a total disconnect there as far as what he's got in his hand versus what's in the machine that his students are watching. Okay, so that was one little mistake. The other big thing is with the AED trainers. We've got some real issues here with people not really understanding all the nuances of an AED. Not only when they're teaching it, but even some people when they're taking the class. And these are some of the more advanced people. For example, the class that he was teaching, he's talking busily about how the AED does this, how it does that, meanwhile, his student behind him on the ground, and I'm realizing that the AED is already plugged in. So therefore, when they hit the on button, it immediately goes to analyzing patient. It assumes you've already put the pads on the patient and you just plugged it in. Meanwhile, the instructor's busy still talking to the class, not realizing that behind him, his student is now in a panic, trying to figure out how to get these pads on this patient in 0.2 seconds. Then the AED says, shock advised, and it's arming the fire, at which this time the student now takes the pads off the mannequin, and then pushes the shock button, which that would have been interesting. However, the instructor at this point in time still is not aware that his student behind him has literally screwed this entire thing up, and that would have been an interesting scenario out in real world. So these are the kind of things that you pick up on when I'm doing the monitors, that I'm literally watching how the student's reacting to the equipment, to what they're doing versus what the instructor's teaching. And certainly as an instructor, yes, you have a class to teach, but when you have a student down there on the mannequin, you need to be paying attention to what that student's doing, because that's kind of the important part of this program as well. Certainly when they were that confused what's going on, and he missed it completely. So, point. The next thing I want to say about one of the nuances is most people don't know that AEDs have a motion detector. So we're hearing now from some of these folks saying that they're supposed to continue CPR right through the analyze portion. Yeah, no. That's a no-no. I've heard that we're supposed to continue compressions while the AED shocks. The gloves you have on are not electrical safety hazard gloves. So these thin latex gloves will not protect you from a shock, and therefore that's going to be the wrong place at the wrong time. The other thing is that AEDs look for a thing called motion. Some of the AEDs have little remotes that you can throw problems at it, and one of the remotes say motion. If it detects movement of any kind, the AED will actually say motion and shut off. It's kind of a safety feature. So if you're busy doing compressions on this person, there's a very good possibility the AED is going to pick up a motion detector and go motion and shut off, which now means you got to start from scratch. So I'm not sure where it came about where somebody's supposed to be doing all these compressions and everything while it's analyzing, and certainly while you're shocking, that is not the time to have your hands on that patient. So that is not an AHA guideline. Yeah, no, that's not what we teach. Okay? So that's the reasons why we do certain things. Certainly if you have questions about anything like that, please give me a call. I had a question the other day, and this is not the first time I've had this question. What about a pregnant female? Can you use an AED on a pregnant female? The answer is kind of common sense, is if you don't save mom, you don't save baby. So yes, there is no issues about using an AED on a pregnant female. Okay, again, kind of common sense. The other question that came up recently was in reference to lay public is not going to reassess the patient. Or basic life support, you know, after say 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you're definitely going to reassess your patient and back into CPR. But for lay public, they're just going to keep doing this until the patient starts moving or whatever, and then their analyze is going to be, are they breathing, is there a response? Okay, there is no pulse check in Heart Saver. So is the patient breathing? If they're breathing, they got a heartbeat. If they're not breathing, right back into CPR. Okay, so that's the answer for those two. Okay, here's some notes in reference to upcoming things. We have a youth mental health class coming up here on April the 13th, be held here. So if you want to check our calendar online, you'll see the times and everything for that class. Remember that CPR can also be taught for people with disability issues. Okay, so you can actually do a CPR class for a person in a wheelchair. That doesn't stop you from showing them how to direct a code and how to point out how to do CPR. So physical challenge is not an issue. You can still work around those physical challenges to teach a person CPR. And again, Heart Saver would be the card of choice in something like that. Card orders. Card orders are going very well. Most people are handling their own cards now, which is what, again, as I spoke in the last monitor, that's what we want. We really want you handling your own cards, issuing your own cards. You can make corrections to cards. So there's a lot of things you can do as the instructor. That's really what you should be doing. Again, you need to stock some of your cards. I've said this multiple times. We had an instructor call complaining because she did a class late Saturday and wanted her cards immediately. That's not how this works. Saturday, we really don't have anybody here to handle cards. Cards are handled Monday through Friday from 10 until 3 o'clock. So that's when we physically have a person here issuing, taking care of cards, taking care of problems. That's what she's here for. Saturdays, we run classes here at the office. There are times when if it's really slow and we've got time, we will try to get an order out. But that's not what we're geared for Saturday. So do not call on Saturday saying, hey, I need cards right. That's your problem. You should have ordered those cards Friday, or you're going to have to wait till Monday to get those cards to issue to your students. So I'm tired of playing games with this. No more games. Get your cards, put them in stock. so that you've got your cards. Okay, it's not our responsibility to issue cards to your students, to your class instantly. We do the best we can, but unless everybody wants a huge price increase in their materials so that we can put somebody here 24 hours a day, which I don't think anybody wants, then let's keep it Monday through Friday. Order some cards ahead of time, put them in your stock. Okay? Remember, if you're tax-free, we've got a handful of folks that are with hospitals, that are with fire departments, that are tax-exempt. Remember, for tax-exempt organizations, do not use our e-store. Call the office, send your order in to the office at ppmems.com. We will then process your order through our system here, the POS here, and issue your cards that way. That way we can take the tax off. If you go through the e-store, there is no way to remove the tax from your order, so it creates a problem for you. Okay, so remember, if you're tax exempt, do not use the e-store to process your order. Call it in and then send an email with what you want. Again, it's got to be in writing, so we have documentation of exactly what you're requesting. Okay. Again, another reminder, make sure you have all your equipment ready when you're doing these renewals. I don't want to pop in for a renewal and find out there's no lungs in your mannequin. And what's interesting is the one instructor had no idea where the lungs even went in his mannequin. When I said to him, I don't see the chest rise, he said on his end, believe it or not, well, I see the chest rise. And I said, well, that's odd, because typically from watching you do this, watching anybody do this, I can see the chest rise, and I don't. I said, open your mannequin up, let me see the lungs. Well, it took him a while to figure out how to even open the mannequin. When he did, there were no lungs in the mannequin. As a matter of fact, the head fell off the mannequin when he opened it. So talk about total confusion. Then he made a comment, I just got this mannequin. Well, then you don't want to go in a testing scenario with something you've never touched prior. Just not good. And as we find these problems out, as we discover these instructors that really don't know what they're doing, and I get reports back from other training center faculties that, hey, this instructor is clueless, then they will no longer be in our training center. Okay, you're free to join 300 and some plus training centers in Maryland. Go forth and do whatever you want, but you're not going to be in our training center. Okay, so make sure you understand what you're doing. Okay, Christine gave me a little note for some of her questions or thoughts, and her comment here is that when you send your order in, when you send an e-card order in, a lot of your folks now are using companies or business names, and that's fine. We encourage that. That's a great idea. Unfortunately, if you're using the Sky is Blue Training Center or Sky is Blue Teaching or something like that, there's a good chance that Christine's not going to know who you are. And remember, we need to approve the order. We need to make sure that you are, in fact, a current instructor and a current instructor with us to be able to issue those cards. So in some cases, we're having a hard time figuring out who you are by the name of your business. Now, more and more, some of the ones she's getting used to, she knows the name of your business and it's working fine. But if she doesn't, then it takes trying to run the phone number, maybe running the email address, and sometimes that doesn't work. So it's not easy sometimes on her end trying to make sure this is a go to actually send the cards the way she's supposed to. So in the comment section, put your name down there if it's not readily understandable in your name, because a lot of people name their companies after their own name. Well, that makes sense. But if it's a different name for a company, make sure you put your name in the notes section so that she'll see your name and she goes, oh, that's Fred Smith. Yeah, he's one of our instructors. Not a problem. This is his company or her company. And so that she can process the order right away. So keep that in mind. It just makes things quicker, especially for her to process these cards and get them out. Time is the name of the game, okay, on our end and certainly on your end. Okay, as always, we stand ready for any questions that pop up or come in. If you notice, the closet door behind me is closed this time. I received a lot of comments on the fact that I had left the closet door open, the cabinet door here, behind me on my last video. But remember, we kind of do these videos, what you see is what you get. I'm certainly not one to stand on umpteen cameramen and lighting, and it's as inexpensive as we can do this for you. But it's to try to get the information out to you. If you got questions or comments, please give us a call, let us know. And we can certainly even do a second video if we get enough calls or questions that come in about particular things. Okay, so again, get out there, keep on teaching. The more people we train, the more lives get saved. So again, thank you for watching. And remember, October, first Sunday in October, is our instructor gathering. And we've got some good guest speakers for you this time lined up. Okay, so take care and talk again soon.